Alright, yeah, welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we're going to be playing a little bit of Historic, and we're going to be admiring the mighty booty of many of our creatures. We're going to be playing around with a high alert deck of sorts, although high alert is actually going to be taking a backseat in this one. With the release of Jumpstart, we actually got a copy of Assault Formation into the format, which is a 2-mana high alert, effectively. I guess it's closer towards Watley in the sense. So 2 mana for an enchantment says each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So basically, toughness matters for us. We can pay a green to remove defender from a creature, but we're actually going to be leveraging the non-defenders in the deck and actually going to be going on to just toughness matters in general. It actually opens up a few more copies of this effect into our deck without much worry about, you know, having to worry about taking off the defender. So we also have 4 copies of Watley the Sun's Heart, 3 mana, 7 loyalty. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So a big reason why we're actually going to be going with the non-defender cards like Yoked Ox is mostly because Assault Formation requires you to pay to remove the defender, and then High Alert is also one of those cards that requires you to have very specific mana in order to get it down, and your defenders can't really do anything as long as you don't have copies of High Alert and Assault Formation. However, if we do non-defenders, then we also open up Watley Sun's Heart that allows us to attack with those creatures as well, giving us an excess amount of copies of this particular effect, which is one of the fallbacks of the deck. Is if your opponent can answer your Assault Formations, your Watleys, your High Alerts, you end up losing the game. We do have an extra copy in the sideboard of High Alert as well. We might as well make it 2 copies, to be honest. Because we do have Fae of Wishes, an honorary big booty creature, but also has the granted side of things to get non-creature cards outside of the game. So we can go into our sideboard essentially to go fetch another copy of High Alert should we need it. So again, we have even more copies of Assault Formation's effect essentially. So onto the creatures. We're very, very low to the curve. Most of our creatures are 1-drops. So we got Yoked Ox, a 1-mana 4/4. Aegis Turtle, a 1-mana 5/5. It's actually the reason why I wanted to return to this deck specifically, because I saw this card and I went, ooh, High Alert. You know me, guys. I've played this deck a lot. So, you know, any excuse to come back and play High Alert, I'm going to do it. We have the Merfolk Secret Keeper, 1-mana 4/4. 1 copy of Shawcoma Crab, 1-mana 4/4. 1-mana 3/3 in Arboreal Grazer. However, this allows us to put a land card from our hand onto the battlefield tapped, which means as early as turn 2 we can play our Watleys and our High Alerts. It's not going to come up too much since we are running 19 lands. We're very aggressive and we top out at 3, so we don't really want to be drawing excess lands when we could just draw 1-mana 3/3s and 1-mana 4/4s. Got Nyx Fleece Ram, a 2-mana 5/5. And other than that, that's essentially the creatures, as far as like big booty creatures are concerned anyway. We do have 3 copies of Tetsuka Umezawa Fugitive. This one's particularly effective in that it gives unblockable to all of your creatures, which in an aggro deck like this, your opponent's going to be chump blocking very early on. So if you can just make them unblockable, you can close out a game nicely that way. And then we also have 3 copies of Tower Defense as well. This card is absolutely insane. 2-mana instant to give creatures +0/+5 and reach until the end of the turn, which for our particular purposes is actually a 2-mana +5/+5 to all creatures that we control, which will close out the game in a heartbeat. Unblocked creatures usually end up happening against this deck. Our opponent basically tries to play to not lose, and they block as much as they can safely block, but it's usually not that safe at all because we got the Tower Defense. We do have 2 copies of Dive Down in here just to protect some creatures. Don't imagine it crops up very often, but it's also a +3/+3 effect as well on our creatures. So again, it's another one of those combat tricks that can really swing the tables in our favor. But yeah, that's essentially the deck. Unfortunately, this deck is almost budget. But the mana base is very, very restrictive on this one. We've got 6 rares in the main outside of the mana base, but to really make this deck work, you really need all of your checks and your shocks, so I wouldn't really call this a budget deck. However, if you do have all your checks and shocks, if you're one of those established players, then this deck is super cheap to build. So yeah, If you do enjoy the content, then make sure to like and subscribe, and without further ado, let's get to the gameplay. This video is brought to you by the generous support of our wonderful patrons and channel members that you see here. If you'd like to support the channel and get access to cool content like sneak peeks, bonus videos, polls on future content, or access to a personal deck critique from myself every month, then hit the join button down below, or check out the Patreon link in the description. With all that said, let's get into the gameplay. Okay, we're in, and we do not have a high alert effect, but this hand does have a lot of very powerful creatures in it, so we can go with turn 1, Yoked Ox, turn 2, Nyx Fleece Ram, turn 3, Aegis Turtle. We do need to find a high alert tower defense, high alert Huatli or assault formation. The odds are actually pretty good of finding them, but in general, I wouldn't really recommend doing what I'm doing. I just feel confident here. So we're going to pay some life. We're going to go with that Yoked Ox. I'll allow these two check lands to come into play untapped. And I'm assuming our opponent is on... They're on anti-goblin hate, I can tell you that much. And there's the assault formation. Okay, so from here, we're going to go with Hinterland Harbor and Nyx Fleece Ram. I'm in no particular rush to show them the tower defense just yet. I imagine we can get a lot more damage done by encouraging our opponent here to swing in with their Hushbringer. But yeah, we've got Assault Formation with Dive Down held open next turn, which is not too bad. We can get around Banishing Light effects and things like that. It's an All That Glitters, so they've got themselves a 2-3. Yeah, this is kind of what I wanted exactly. Is our opponent tapping out to make a play that's not exactly the greatest. So now, because they swung in for 2, they were assuming that the backlash wouldn't be that much, but we've got the assault formation now. So we can swing in for 9. Opponent's going to take it. Could swing in for 12, but I think getting down Aegis Turtle is probably just better. Can't protect the assault formation with a dive down, and best thing they can get rid of is the turtle we've just played, and our board's decent enough from there. So we're actually in a position where, with the wrong kind of blocks, our opponent might actually just lose here. So it's Boggles then. And there's an All-Seed. Okay, so they're going to gain some life. 5 life is not bad. We're gaining 1. And we got the assault formation. Okay, so we're going to get in. All attack. We might already have lethal. I'm not entirely sure. It depends on how our opponent blocks here. If we get a double block from them, then fantastic. Otherwise, we're going to get plus 10, plus 10. So that's 19. And then we've even got a plus 3 here with the dive down. And yeah. That's what happens when you don't all block. Which is why I really love the assault formation kind of decks, the high alert lists. Is because this happens way more often than you might imagine. And yeah, we just end up with 13/13s on turn 3, I think it is. Something like that. It's pretty good. Okay, we're in. We have a fine hand, actually. We've got turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 plays, and we have our assault formation effect in our hand, so yeah, there's not too much to be upset with here. I think we're going to go with the Hollowed Fountain, since it'll allow us to go with the Shawcombe Crab next turn and play a Breeding Pool tapped. If our opponent's Chandra Sleeves mean that they're playing mono red, it's going to be very nice for us. And honestly, the Forest isn't the worst thing in the world. Since we can play Huatli without having to pay an extra 2 mana here. And it's going to be Groblins. Alright, well, we could have ourselves a very quick victory here. Just have to see. Swing for 8 and, yep, win the game. Okay. Alright. Yeah, we'll put our opponent in a position, essentially, where they're forced to chump block from now until the end of time. They know they're drawing a mountain, I guess, which is the big stickler. I guess this hand's not particularly good. On turn 3, I think the worst thing we could see was, I think, Goblin Chieftain or something like that. And to get rid of Huatli, they'd have to swing into it and leave her at 1. From there, we swing back. We've already got 8 power here. And then we got the other 10 here, so that's another 18. So our opponent would be dead there if they would go after the Huatli and only play 1 creature. So pretty solid. 2-minute game. Woo! Alright, let's have a look. See, we have turn 2, Fae of Wishes. It's an awkward hand. We are on the draw, though. I really don't like to see 3 of these effects, but is this a bad 7? Yes. Is it a good 6? Yes, I'd say it's a good 6. So let's just pretend one of these Huatlis doesn't exist. Opponent leads with Selfless Savior, and I really wish that was a Hallowed Fountain, but here we are. Alright, so Selfless Savior. We've seen this line before. Does it lead into... Well, it did not lead into what I thought it would. We've got our opponent having a 3-5 to lead off with. So it's mono-white Boggles, essentially. We are going to actually just go with a Fae of Wishes here. And hope for the best, to be honest. It's a weird one. There's Core Spirit Dancer, so they can start drawing cards off of all of their auras. Opponent swings in. I'm gonna... they could have Karamitra's Blessing. So no blocks. And no white mana for me. Oof. Well, I think I'm just going to go with one of the Huatlis to gain a little bit of life here. We gain life on the activation, and then we also gain life because our opponent will be swinging in at it with the Selfless Savior. Which I think is fine. I would much rather this be a tower defense at this point. Though, I guess Huatlis are a little bit harder to defend. Opponent going in on the All That Glitters, on the Core Spirit Dancer, and a Hushbringer against the Goblins. Yep. I think that's all she wrote. I believe we are dead.
Well done.
Just in time. So we can go Nyx Fleece Ram and Assault Formation. Can't block the Core Spirit Dancer, but we can currently, short of them drawing another aura, block the Selfless Savior. We're probably, though, realistically chump blocking Spirit Dancer. I'll just gain him for 5. Yes, that's fine. I am at 8. I am at 9. Tower defense. Okay. Let's think this one through. Because we could win. If our opponent blocks badly, they're in a lot of trouble. If they have Karamitra's Blessing, they can save the Savior or gain 3 life. I think we're all attacking. And we're seeing how they play this. If they don't block, they lose. Okay. And that's just kind of how this goes. The seal away, I think, was about the only thing that they could have had there that would save them. We'd have only hit them for 9 and then played a Yoked Ox to chump. And then from there, I think we're probably potentially actually still winning. It depends on if they have more Glaring Aegis, I suppose, to tap down our blocker. But yeah, okay. That's how this game goes, usually. Tower Defense is the surprise got you I actually win card, which nobody seems to play around. But you're also punished for playing around it as well, which makes it such a good toolbox in this deck. Okay, let's have a look. We have turn 1 Arboreal Grazer to put the Hinterland Harbour down. From there, if we draw a land, we've got high alert, because we already got the colours, so we're going to keep this one. And we're going to see how we can turn this hand into a victory. I think it's doable. So, Hinterland Harbour down. Our opponent's thinking, oh god, look at that net deck. Turn 1 Arboreal Grazer. Thought I'd escape that. No, no, no. No, 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 you have not. So if we draw a land next turn, do we play high alert? I feel like we probably do. We're up against goblins, so we don't have much time. No, we didn't, so I'm just going to go Yoked Ox and Merfolk Secret Keeper. There's still time to win this game against goblins. If we can get the high alert down, we're in a really good spot. Our opponent reveals a mountain off the top. Land, land, land. The odds are really low for us, unfortunately, though. But land nonetheless. Hand it over. That is literally win or lose kind of situation. Do we draw the land? We do. Okay, so now we probably win. So we go a high alert, and we swing in with our mighty board state. Our opponent crumbles at the thought. You're at 9. Could potentially be dead next turn by an unblocked Arboreal Grazer, since we have the +6/+6 for our dive downs. Opponent does get to Krenko, because it's off the top, which is just absurdly lucky. But again, it all depends on their attack. I think they're doing the math on whether or not they can get away with it. Gonna sack to make some snoops to make more goblins with Krenko. Yeah, okay, we lose now. Now we lose. There's no way they all attack us, right? It's 11 damage. They wouldn't possibly be dead, right? I think they're just doing the... Oh, I'm gonna play some Krenko, which also has haste. Yeah, okay. Alright. Ban this deck. Ban our opponent's deck. Just ban it. I love Krenko Mob Boss. I love Muxus. I love Goblins. Ban that deck. Alright, one lander. Cannot keep this hand. If we had an assault formation, I may consider it, but since we have a 3-drop and no lands in sight, I think we're going to have to throw this one in the trash. We do almost have a turn 1 play as well, but no blue mana here, so this is basically the most garbage hand you've ever seen that almost looks keepable. So let's go down to 6, and this hand's fine. It needs an assault formation effect, but we're going to keep it. We'll go down the dive down, I guess. Not much sense in protecting our creatures at this stage. And let's see how far our opponent wants to mill. Going down to 4, that is a treasure hunt deck our opponent is playing. No one mulls down that far unless they're playing treasure hunt. If they're playing treasure hunt, we're going to go Aegis Turtle first. I need max damage. Yeah. And I need an assault formation, a high alert, or a Huatli ASAP. So, opponent did hit another treasure hunt. This is the point where the deck essentially folds. If it doesn't hit treasure hunt and it hits the Thassa's Oracle instead, it's very hard for them to come back from doing it immediately. But from there, they've got Mystic Sanctuary to dig themselves out of that rut. Rut row. That is not an assault formation. Alright, well, Secret Keeper, untap because our life total is irrelevant. Go with another Aegis Turtle. Pass the turn. Looking at hitting our opponent for lethal if we can get an assault formation 2 turns from now. Come on. What are our odds? Assault formation, 8%. High alert, 4%. And a Huatli, 8%. Not bad odds, but not great either. Could be better. Our opponent deciding whether or not playing Treasure Hunt is the optimal play here. Good news for them, they literally have no other play. They hit a Thassa's Oracle. Fantastic. Alright, so they'll go Island here. And then cycle with Sandbar. At some point. None of this matters unless we can get one of our build-around cards. Come on. Do we know what the bottom of the deck is? We know it's a dive down, so our odds are slightly increased. Knowing that it can't be that dive down. It upsets me how popular this deck is. It really shouldn't be anything more than a meme. Speaking of, we're about to showcase why it is a meme. We're good enough to draw the card we need. Opponent cycles with Sandbar. We hit our opponent for 14. They are dead next turn, unless they can win right now. So they really needed to, I think, top deck Treasure Hunt there to win, I believe. But instead, they have to actually Mystic Sanctuary on top, and then play it straight into the Mystic, the Treasure Hunt that they can no longer cast. Yeah, if they would have top decked that, they would have been able to go to 0, and then Thassa's Oracle, but they didn't. We were just lucky enough to win the game. Sweet. When does Treasure Hunt just get banned for the sake of fun? Because this pops up way too many times. It's a good meme, but it requires no skill whatsoever to pilot, and just everyone plays it. The matchmaker just pits you against it so many times as well. When it doesn't, when the deck strength matchmaker doesn't know what to pit you against, it puts you against Treasure Hunt. It's not even like debatable. It does that. It's like, I cannot find a worthy matchup. Have a Treasure Hunt. I just wish it'd stop. I really do. Just ban it because it's actually stupid. But, whatever. Alright, we're in. We unfortunately have some tap lands, which I'm going to have to play on turn 1. I'm going to keep this though. It's got the Assault Formation, it's got 3 1-drops in it. So there's a lot going for us here. So we're going to go with Sunpetal Grove, pass. Next turn we'll do Secret Keeper, I think, Grazer, and then the Sunpetal Grove in. Oh, and Tetsuko as well. Alright, so Grazer, put Sunpetal Grove into play tapped. Play the island, play the 0/4. Next turn we have Assault Formation into Yoked Ox. We're attacking our opponent for 7 next turn, and the turn after that it will be unblockable damage. So we should have this game mostly in the bag, I think. If our opponent can counter this, I suppose, then that's going to be an issue. And it's not really an issue when you draw a replacement effect. So Assault Formation comes down, we swing for 7. Taking our opponent down to 13. And we're going to go Yoked Ox and see what we can do. A tower defense off the top is probably a win. Our opponent can't just deal with Assault Formation since we have the replacement Huatley here. We have all the replacement Assault Formations. Okay, well, let's swing. See how our opponent wants to block. They'll have to do some jump blocking. So this is the reason why tower defense is very good. I don't have it, but my opponent doesn't know that. They have to play as though it might be a thing. So they're going to double block here to try and kill the Grazer. But they forget that I can do this. And they're at 3 now. Every single one of my creatures is a lethal threat. And they are dead. Okay. Ritual of Sut would have saved them there if they have it in their deck. I think that's really about it. And actually, Extinction Event. Yeah, you could name odds with Extinction Event off of a land. But I guess they're just too far behind for that to happen. And we do have a 3/3 in our hand as well, so, you know, Tetsuko, unblockable 3/3, ready to pick them apart. They definitely could have come back from that, but they didn't, so we won. Sweet. Alright, opponent goes first. We have an awkward checklandy hand. These check lands are upsetting me. I actually think we probably want less of them in the deck. If I do end up deciding that's the case, I'll edit the deck list down below, so it might look slightly different if you end up looking at it prior to this game. Yeah, it's hard to tell on this one whether or not we should keep it or not, because it's not a bad hand if these lands weren't tapped. I think because of the nature of Historic, we've got to take the mull on that one, and this is actually a very fine hand. This is basically the good side of the deck. So as far as the bottom is concerned, I think we take our chances that our opponent doesn't have enchant removal, and we keep the assault formation, and we go with this. It's a shame this isn't like a breeding pool. That would be the most ideal, and I guess that's also kind of ideal. So now we can go with the turn 1 Aegis Turtle to swing for 5 next turn. Croxer for our opponent. We'll get rid of a land here. Get rid of the Glacial Fortress. So we're up against Grixis, which cannot technically deal with enchantments, and it might not be able to deal with 1 mana 5/5s as efficiently as they might like. Opponent passes. So we get in for 5, or at least we try to. I think our opponent playing Interplane of Beacon means that they probably don't have Bedevils. So we're going to go with our Boreal Grazer and Fae of Wishes. Don't really care about losing High Alert here if they do go for another Croxer or a Thought Eraser or whatever they want to do. Mostly concerned with not getting our board wiped. Tiny Bones, Trinket Thief. Okay, well, swing for 7. Play Nyx Fleece Ram. And then pass the turn. So, Tiny Bones, Trinket Thief, 2 mana, 1/2. At the beginning of each end step, if an opponent discarded a card, you draw a card and lose 1 life. You can pay 6 to make an opponent with no cards in hand lose 10 life. Apparently they couldn't do that. And, yeah, they were going to lose, so let's assume they blocked here and played nothing. They probably had some removal, let's be realistic. We probably spend our turn activating Assault Formation on our Boreal Grazer, hitting them for 4, and then we've got ourselves a lethal threat. And yeah, seems pretty good to me. Alright, well, these games are just absurdly quick. I'm going to have to stitch like a million matches together, but you know what? If it has to be done, it has to be done. Alright, we're in. We have a good hand, and it should be noted that it did take 50 seconds for us to matchmake, so if an island drops down, we know exactly what our opponent is playing. Let's have a look-see. I'm going to keep this hand, though, because if it is Treasure Hunt, then we've already won. So, opponent drops a Fabled Passage. Okay, so the matchmaker was just terrible. Sure, okay, well, turn 2 Assault Formation, swing for 4 is not bad at all. Can make it a swing for 9 at any time with the tower defense. And yeah, we're just hoping now at this point to just get any blue or green high alert creature. And our opponent has Plains as their first land choice. Opponent, for the record, is a whale. Paid real money for these lands. So I imagine their deck is not bad. Another tower defense. Okay, well, swing for 4. I actually don't know if we throw a tower defense that easily away here. It's possible we do. I wouldn't mind using one of the tower defenses, though, to potentially defend against, like, double shot. Opponent's just gonna slap us with the old Stomperino, probably land and then play the Bone Crusher Giant, is Naya. It's not a color combo you see very often at all. Alright, and now we've got a tower defense that we could use aggressively, or we could just go with Tetsuko and have it be unblockable. That also works, and we win next turn if our opponent leaves our Tetsuko alone. May even just win if our opponent doesn't block Secret Keeper with Bone Crusher Giant. We'll have to see. So they need, like, double removal spell for Tetsuko or a Banishing Light or something like that. Maybe they're giants. Is it giant tribal? That'd be interesting. Opponent knows this board is unblockable. Yet they don't swing in. Fascinating. I wonder what they could have. You can't block. Tetsuko says you cannot block. It has 0 power. Although the game is not very beginner-friendly in identifying that to be the case. So I don't even need to use the tower defenses in my hand. I can just do an assault formation here and hope they don't have Scorching Dragonfire for Tetsuko, I guess. But even then, that's 5 points of damage and then probably the win next turn. Regardless. Or at least force them into chump blocks until they die. One or the other. Alright, well. First time, I think, getting Tetsuko to work, so that's nice. Let's go for another one, I guess. Game number 69. Alrighty then, let's have a look-see. I think this hand is keepable. We need a land, and then from there we're really in a good spot. We've got the land base already for a turn 1 Aegis Turtle into either Secret Keeper or Fae of Wishes for turn 2, and then after that we're swinging. Well, at least we have to hope we are anyway. Plenty of opportunity to do some attacking. Our opponent with green-white into Alseid, so probably playing Boggles, if I had to guess. Yep. Okay, so they're just going to gain 1 here. And we need to extremely fast beat them. So is it better to swing for 5 now? Or is it better to go Secret Keeper or Boreal Grazer? I guess it's better to go with the go wide. Though if our opponent does have an All That Glitters or something like that, we're going to be in a lot of trouble very quickly. Opponent does not pass. Does not attack. Why? We're going to go with Assault Formation. And we're going to get swinging. I guess they figured that this might happen. And so they want to protect their board state a little bit. Double Karamitra's Blessing would suck. They're actually just going to block and give protection. That is a weird line. Face of Divinity, okay. So it's a 4/6. It will have lifelink if they can enchant it again, so we don't want to see Sentinel's Eyes from our opponent. And 9, 10, 11, 12 with Tetsuko here. Yeah, I guess we do want to just go with Tetsuko. Trying to outrace them. It's not going to be easy. Because if they get 1 more aura on the Core Spirit Dancer, it is a lifelinker. But they are at 4, so we'll have to see. Archon is not good enough. And Karamitra's Blessing just to get him for 6. And that, ladies and gents, should be the game. Fabulous. So yeah, their hand was garbage. Their hand was very bad. They only had 1 aura in the entirety of it. I mean, you usually auto keep a hand with Spirit Dancer in it, because it will dig you out of a tough situation, but yeah, I don't see keeping this hand, especially if like Face of Divinity is your only aura. It's only good when you have already set up like multiple auras at that point. You want to be looking for your All That Glitters or your Ancestral Mask, I think it's called, the 3 mana version of All That Glitters. And you want your Sentinel's Eyes, your Glaring Aegises, all the things that our opponent just didn't have there. Very strange keep from them. Alright guys, well that is gonna have to do it for today's video. We've played a lot of this deck, and it's been doing exceptionally well actually. It's mostly kind of gotcha pieces, and we haven't really gone against any particular net decks except for Goblins, which we were 50% win rate on, actually, I think today, so that's not too bad. As long as you can outrace Goblins, you've got at least something interesting to do with your list. But yeah, open up some M21. I'm not going to waste your time with this mastery pass, I imagine, but I'm just going to get a card style I don't like. I just want these card styles to be static. Is it just me who looks at that and it thinks, that looks great, but why is it spinning? That's why I keep unlocking these. I'm waiting for the graphics setting to say, make these static, and then they look pretty cool, and I'll apply many of them, but until then, we're going to have to wait until a future video where I can discuss that. Hopefully you've enjoyed. If you have, then make sure to hit that like button and subscribe as well for more content like this in the future. We'll be back soon enough with some more Magic the Gathering shenanigans, so I hope you've enjoyed. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.